we now have all our speakers on stage, so they will present themselves, we'll hear a lot about them, but we have Bolasol, we have Lauren Arms, and we have Carmen Dickinson, and today we are going to talk about money. So I think what we've been doing at Vestpod is a lot about money management, so how to save money, how to repay debt, how to pay into your pension. But actually, to do all these things, you need to have money, you need to get paid somehow. So we're going to talk about actually getting this money today. So there's still a gender pay gap, women are still lagging behind. So we are asking for salary increases, we're not necessarily getting our salary increases. So today we'll talk, it's going to be a very practical talk, so we'll talk about our own experiences, asking for more money, what are the tools you can, the tips, the tools, all the things you can do, and we'll also talk about the mindset. So I think we'll start actually with the mindset, so trying to understand what are the emotions around money, why is it so hard to ask for money. Then we'll talk about negotiation, and we'll close talking about communication and how not to feel guilty asking for money, and we'll talk also about imposter syndrome, because I think especially for women, that's something we all have, and hopefully we can overcome all these obstacles and get this weight here. Yeah? So, ladies, can you just tell me why you're here today? Maybe Bola, you want to start?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm here today because you kindly invited me. The personal finance community is quite small, and we met, I think it was last year, but you know, I run a personal finance company called Rich Girl Chronicles, and originally, so the biggest sister company is Refined Currency, and it started off as a website, then I started doing events, and I guess we're here now. So I've been doing that for about 4 years because money has always been super important to me, especially with women. And guys are always like, why isn't there a Rich Guy Chronicles and things like that? And I'm just like, because we're the ones who are usually left out of the conversation. You know, I studied maths and finance, and working in the corporate world, most of the time I'm speaking about money, I'm speaking with men. And I just wanted to change that conversation to include women in it.
I can't stop smiling because I'm so happy to be on this panel talking about money. I love money. And I love talking about money. So my name's Lauren. I run a business called Well-to-Do. I launched Well-to-Do because I saw an opportunity to start a conversation about the business of wellness. So wellness is kind of a hot topic right now. And my goal is to help people build businesses in that industry. So we run events, we write reports, we produce content around trends in the wellness industry. And more recently, I've started to work as a business coach, and I work one-on-one with female founders who are building something based and founded on their passion for the wellness industry or passion for wellness, but where they also want to make money. So we're going to get into this, but I've had my own journey with money, and one of my real passion points now is to help people to see and understand that you're allowed to do something that you love and make money. It's not an either or. So that's kind of the work that I do in my business coaching, and I just think Emily is amazing, and 3 cheers for Emily for making this platform accessible, because...
Wait for my question.
Yeah. I'll be thanking you later, because it's amazing to have these conversations, so thanks.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Carmel Dickinson. I work for a business called Boring Money, like as in like yawn, it's very boring. I am head of partnerships and events, and fundamentally what I do is I drive the commercials of that business. If you Google boringmoney.co.uk, you will find a website which will give you guidance, not advice, guidance and education around how to start your savings journey, your investments journey, pensions, etc., etc. The way we make money, though, is that we don't like to kind of just put loads of ads up there and sort of try and make money out of you guys, is that we fundamentally believe that it's absolutely pointless. You come to Vestpod, you come to Boring Money, you learn, you think, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start saving, I'm going to sort my pension out, and then you go to HSBC or you go to one of the other financial providers' websites, and then they throw a load of jargon at you, you have a terrible user journey, and you just feel patronised. So the way we make money is they are our clients, and we are trying to teach them more about you and how to communicate better with you and how to market better with you. And what we've kind of found through that journey of Boring Money, we've been around for 4 years, is we do a lot of research, and it's that there is an investment gap with women, there's a pensions gap with women, and I kind of feel a little bit responsible for it, if I'm honest, because my career trajectory has been, I've been in advertising and marketing for financial publications. I was commercial director on Times and Sunday Times money sections, I was financial lead at Guardian Labs, and consistently taking advertising and marketing that was really bland, boring, for high net worth, mainly men, mainly sponsoring rugby, golf, for men, and you lot, most of you, sorry to the men in the room, were left out of that conversation, left out of that marketing, so we're trying to change that, and we're trying to make it a bit different, and we're trying to talk to you in the way that you should be spoken to, you need to be spoken to about your journeys, about the different kind of barriers that you come up against, because women's financial journeys are different. So that's me.
And we don't.
That's why.
Pardon? We don't play golf.
And we don't play golf. Well, some of us do.
I try. Not very well.
But that's how I met Emily along that journey, and we've kind of shared this passion of being sort of financial feminists, trying to change the industry a little bit and making it more accessible to you.
No, and I think why I chose these speakers is because they all work with different women. So I think I'd like to know tonight who is an employee in the room with a big company, who's a freelancer, who's a business owner, and who's a bit of everything. So I think I mean, each of these speakers can talk about their own experiences, but Bola, if we start with you, you have this amazing coaching group. I mean, I'm not part of it, but I've seen great things on social media called the Rich Girl Chronicles. So what you do is you put women together. I think it's online, and you coach women, and they can also talk to each other. So what I wanted to ask you is more around money mindset. So I think a lot of women, when they come to workshops and stuff, they're all super worried. I realized, because they're going to be talking about money for the first time. So how can you change your mindset around money and have more a growth mindset and think, okay, it's okay, I can actually earn more money, because I think there's also this fear about money that we can't get more money, that is not enough money. So how do you also work on your mindset?
Yeah, I think a lot of us can have a scarcity mindset. And hands up who believes in affirmations and repeating them. They're so important. I don't want to go on about this for too long, but I was actually really bitter because I came here less than a year ago, and someone I actually looked up to had an event about personal finance, and she kind of knew what I did for a living, but at the time I hadn't birthed Rich Girl Chronicles, so I was just doing the website stuff. I was so pissed in the corner of the room. I was just how am I not on the panel? How am I not on the panel? And I said, do you know what? I said, I promised myself I'm going to start my own thing and I'll be back on that panel. And here I am. Yeah, it was actually in October. I was speaking to my manager and Itsu just scoffing my face. But anyway, let me not get into all of that. It's about your mindset, and I call them rich girls, rich women. I tell women, change your mindset, the way you think about money, because people say, oh, I have more money than money, I'm broke. And I say, be careful with your words, be careful with the way you speak to yourself about money. It's not a joke. And it can be hard in times when you don't have it, but you have to tell yourself that having a rough patch with money doesn't mean that you're bad with money. Something can happen unexpectedly, and then it's just where is all my funds gone? And I don't mind sharing this, but I think last year I was really on track to buying a house. I'm 27. I was really on track to buying a house, and then my dad got ill and he passed away. So we all had to fly to Nigeria and pay for the funeral and everything. So that kind of wiped me out. And then I got made, redundant from a project. I was working with Deloitte. So then it was just within 6 months, I'd used the money I had, and then I'd lost my job. So I decided to focus on Rich Girl Chronicles. And as a result now, I don't have a lot of money. And I said, man, am I bad with money? But I had to say, no, your circumstances meant that at this time, you couldn't do that. It doesn't mean you're bad with money. You're making your way back up, the savings ladder, whatever it is, you are good with money. So I really do believe in affirmations. And I think we have to be really kind with ourselves about the way we speak about our relationship with money as well.
And what do you think about? I mean, for me, so I worked in finance before, so I was earning like a good salary. So I had my banker's friends, and it's like not showing off, but you have money. And then I quit banking. I was earning nothing for a few years. I had my children and stuff, and I really associated like my self-worth with how much money I was earning, because I feel I wasn't somehow partying in the economy or like in the expenses and stuff of my family. So how do you actually like separate these two things?
I look back at my achievements, and these are things that we have to do, and at times the issue we have is, as a result of everyone else doing it, we can discount what we've done. So if you've been to college or uni and there's something that you've studied for to get to the place you are now, you shouldn't discount that mentality, because you can't live in your current situation when it's negative and tell yourself like, woe is me. I think it's so important to say, actually, look at the steps I've taken to get here. I don't want to touch on imposter syndrome too much because I know we're going to go into it later. But there were times where if I was invited on this type of panel maybe a year or 2 years ago, I might turn it down because I didn't feel like I belonged here. But then eventually I said, hang on, I've been doing this for 4 years. I need to give myself enough credit to say I belong here. So you need to tell yourself, I deserve to be rich, and I can define being rich in my own way. It doesn't have to be defined by what Instagram's doing or what the latest influencer is doing or a private jet or your friend who's super rich and you go around their house like it can be defined by what you choose to be, as long as you're content within yourself in your definition of rich.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Lauren, I read actually, I think you were interviewed in an article maybe in Forbes, and you were talking about your mindset around money and how you arrived in the UK, you built up your business, and very quickly, it sort of worked out and it was a success, a lot of hard work, I guess. But how did you change your mindset around money also around these years, from also building a business that you love and trying to make money from this business that you love?
Oh, such a big question. So yeah, I moved to the UK 6 years ago. I came in the capacity of wanting to climb the corporate ladder. That was my dream. I wanted to have a BlackBerry and go to important meetings. Because that's like being in the corporate world, right? That's success. And I realised pretty quickly that it was really overrated. I'd also come from a relatively small city in Australia, Brisbane, and moved to London and suddenly realised that I wasn't as talented and qualified as I thought I was. I was just one of many. I felt sort of like a little fish in a big pond of talent. And it didn't take me long to realise that I didn't look at my company director and think, I want to be you in 15 years' time. Does anyone relate to that? So I stumbled upon this kind of entrepreneurship thing. I was not the kid selling lemonade outside of my parents' front garden. I was not born an entrepreneur. I figured it out by learning and making mistakes. But I launched a business not knowing how I was going to make money. So when I quit my job 4.5, 5 years ago, I had no business plan. I just knew that I was sick of working for someone else, and that I was sick of waking up every day feeling like I wasn't finding any fulfillment at all in my job. And so I did not figure it out overnight. I didn't wake up one morning with an aha moment of how I'm going to make money. I actually spent a year not making any money. I was doing a little bit of consulting to kind of get myself by. I had to move out of my lovely apartment in Chelsea and move in with my boyfriend at the time's parents, which was not very glamorous at all. I told people I was moving to the country because that sounded very glamorous, but actually I couldn't afford to pay my rent anymore. And the thing that I realised that had to change was my relationship with money. So I had some pretty deep set beliefs around making money, doing something that I love. A lot of you may relate to this. I had parents who went to work and didn't particularly enjoy their work, so work was not about having fun. It was about earning a paycheck. So for me, I'd taken this leap from doing something I didn't enjoy to doing something I loved, which was building this community and services around helping people grow their business in wellness. But I was doing so much for free because I thought I get to do something I love and that's enough. And there was this real disconnect for me between doing something I love, as I said at the beginning, and being allowed to charge for it. So I started to obsess around how your mindset defines your actions around money. And as Bola said, if you don't question your beliefs around money, then your actions won't follow, or won't align with that. So what I mean is, if you believe that it's hard to make money, or that money doesn't come easily, or that people don't want to pay for the service that you offer, or that it's too competitive, or all of these sort of limiting, scarcity-based beliefs around money, then your actions will reflect that. And as soon as I started reading books about money mindset, questioning my beliefs, asking why I formed those beliefs, things started to really shift for me, and I realized that I was doing work for free. And I was like a slap in the head moment. It was like, actually, this is a valuable service that people want to pay for and will actually get more value out of if they pay for. And that was sort of the beginning of a real shift for me, of thinking, what am I good at? What does the market want? What are the problems that I can solve? And how do I attach a price to that so that I can actually build a business that makes money?
And you told me you saw Tony Robbins a few weeks ago.
I did.
I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, but
anyone else loves Tony Robbins?
So, and he's talking a lot about this, money is abundant, and you should go invest and stuff. So,
yeah.
Is there one tip you really like from this seminar?
I love Tony Robbins because, and I know he's been in a bit of hot water in the press recently. I don't believe any of that stuff. I love Tony Robbins because he talks about business as a spiritual game, so it is about having a positive impact on people. Fundamentally, business is about adding value to people's lives, which is so great. But he also talks about money being a vehicle for doing good in the world, a vehicle for allowing you to live your best life. If anyone, when you hear this statement like, I want to get rich, for most people that's quite a loaded sentence. It makes you feel sometimes triggered, we have an association with get rich. It's like it's a taboo subject, as you've identified, Emily, but it's also something that a lot of us deep down aspire, to have and crave. Why? Because being rich is not just about having money for the sake of it, it's about living a rich life. It's about being able to do the things you want to do. It's about being able to give back. Tony Robbins feeds 1 billion people a year. He's had an incredible impact on people's lives, and going and investing in those sorts of coaching and training experiences has been so valuable and enriching for my life and my business. And if there's anything that I took away from it as a business owner, for any entrepreneurs in the room, it's that your goal in business should be to be a business owner and not an operator. So I'm on that journey of figuring out how to not do everything all the time. I'm not trying to solve all the problems in the business, and actually, look at ways to scale and build a team so that you have that support to grow.
That's what I'm learning. Carmel. So I think we've talked a lot about money mindset and that it's okay to ask for more money. But how do you actually know what you're worth? How much money should you ask? How should you price your services? So for borrowing money, you're negotiating a lot on their behalf, but you're also negotiating for yourself and negotiating your salary. So how do we find this magic number, or how do we work towards finding this number?
It's so difficult. And I was thinking about this a lot because I was like, okay, God, there's going to be freelancers in the room and different businesses, and I kind of come from quite a corporate level. And actually, I was watching The Handmaid's Tale, because everybody know The Handmaid's Tale, watch The Handmaid's Tale. There's a real kind of clear trajectory about worth and value, and if you watch that, those handmaids have such strong value to Gilead, but their worth has been taken away from them. They feel worthless, which is why they are being treated the way they are and allowing themselves to be treated like that. And they make those handmaids feel worthless. And the main character, June, she understands, she still has a sense of worth, which is why she's a little bit of a fighter in this weird kind of way. And I think that's worth always bearing in mind. And so my sort of media sort of journey is your worth is basically what you need to survive, right? You always still need that. So, in brass tacks terms, it's, how much do you need to keep the lights on, to keep your office going? So for us as a startup, We have several members of staff. We have an office that we rent. We need 75k every month to keep ourselves going. And as the commercial person, that's kind of my responsibility. So I kind of know that as my bottom line, that's my worth. I need to keep driving to that and make that money every month. And that doesn't always happen, especially in the early years, you know. But you kind of, that's the minimum that we need to be making as a business. And then your kind of like your value kind of starts to stack up on top of that. So when I worked at The Guardian, we used to do content creative pieces. And they used to look at like how much would it cost the journalist to write this, how much would it cost the, you know, the designer, and then they used to throw 60% on top of it. Because The Guardian is a recognised brand, and by advertising in The Guardian and by associating yourself with The Guardian, you get a halo effect and you get their audience. So that's the value to the advertiser in that section. So it's kind of when you're sort of trying to weigh up your worth and your value, it's like, what do you need to survive? What do you need to make sure that you can kind of switch your lights on and have a roof over your head and, you know, get out of bed for? And then, or even have a bed. And then what's your value? And you can kind of work that out a little bit, which I think is what you were talking about. Is like, you can work that out a little bit. It's like, sometimes it's, you know, if you're an influencer, like if you've got so many followers and you're gonna bring those followers to that brand, that's quite valuable. And or are you gonna save the business time because you're a freelancer and they don't have to pay your pension, they don't have to put a roof over your head? There's loads and loads of things. And then there's also, sometimes you will, you know, take or leave on certain things as well, and that's up to you. So my boyfriend's here. And he's an electrician, completely different sort of world, but he's self-employed and he started up his business. And then we were talking about this, there's a landlord who owns quite a few properties, and he was really pushing John down on what he was asking for John to pay. He was paying John to do this work. And we kind of weighed it up, and I said, but in this instance, this guy is a landlord and he has loads of properties. So if you do a good job and you do it at a kind of low rate-ish, don't go too low, but if you do that, he's got loads of other properties that you can then get. So it's just kind of weighing up all the options and what you feel comfortable with, and making sure that you have your worth as your minimum and then your value on top. And then, you know, as boring money, we always kind of have to weigh that up all the time. Sometimes we get this huge client and we think they're really pushing us down on rate, and we're kind of going, but you know what, if we get this business and we can show the rest of the industry that we're working with a huge bank or a huge asset manager, and then also more business will come for it. But then sometimes we get a client and they're just pushing us down and down and down, maybe because they're a fintech and they've got no money, and but you have to walk away from that and say, but it's going to take us this long, and even if we make the bare minimum, there's no follow-on from it. So it's just understanding that worth value to yourself and also to understand the value that you're bringing to the business that you're working with.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I think now it's from where we are and the money we're earning today. So I mean, I worked in finance again. I never negotiated my salary because in some industries you feel you can't negotiate your salary, but I'm sure actually the guys negotiated their salary, because one day I found on the printer or the salaries of all the team, I was like, okay, so people actually do negotiate their salaries because we started at the same time. Then I was a freelancer, but like leaving like my corporate job, I found it extremely hard to set up my rates. Because where do you start? Like, do you divide your salary by the number of hours? Actually not, because you run out of pension, you have to pay your own taxes and stuff, so you should shoot for something higher, maybe a third higher, I don't know, there's no magic number, but that should definitely be higher. But at the same time, when you go and you're like, okay, my rate is like, I don't know, like £500 a day, £1,000 a day, you're just so worried because you're gonna be rejected like so many times, and maybe it's gonna work. So what do you want to do? Do you want to take like 5 jobs at like £200, or do you want to take 1 job at £1,000? So I think, Bola, this is more for you, like, because you've been talking to all these women about their own salary and stuff. How do you go and negotiate a salary? How do you go negotiate a rate? And what do you do when people say no?
Yeah. Thank God I have an example for this. A few years ago, I was working for a major bank, and I went to my operations manager and I just asked him for, you know, a quick informal chat, and basically outlined my strengths in the business, what I've been doing. And, you know, I said, there are people who do the same job as me who are earning a lot more money, and say, you know, I would like to ask for more money, that's what I'm asking for now. And we spoke about it, and he was just like, that's absolutely fine. I was thinking, what? I was like, this is super easy. And a month passed, and he said paperwork was going to be sorted out, and nothing was sorted out. I was emailing him, and he was just pushing it back and pushing it back. And I was just like, right, I'm just another little fish, as he said. I'm just another little fish in a big pond. They don't actually care. So I continued to come into work, same mentality and everything, and I just started looking for a new job. And then I found a job that paid me double of what I was getting there. And I literally was just like, right, that's it, I'm off. And about 3 days after I was off, like, so many people got made redundant. I hate that happened for them, but I was really feeling on top of the world. Simply because I was like, I'm so glad that I stepped out at the moment and realised my worth for myself. Because at times, life will happen to you and not for you, and there's such a difference. And you want to say that you took the position of power, that even when someone said no to you, you decided that that wasn't the end of your work. You were going to go somewhere where somebody was willing to align with it.
And what are like the main tips or like advice you give to women on negotiation?
I would say determine your strengths. If you're sometimes a little cheeky with timing, I knew I was going to have that talk. So like 2 weeks before, supposed to start at 9. Oh, I'm in at 8:45. I've already got teas and coffees. So just make the effort. Obviously, talk about your strengths. Talk about what you bring to the business to the company. And also, don't take the first no as a straight no. You could ask for different things. Maybe you could ask for more holiday. Maybe you could ask for more skill training. There's so many ways to go about it. And also, you could ask them, is this something that we could review again in a few weeks or a few months, for example? Because they could say something like, I'd love to give it to you, but we don't have the budget for it right now. And you just say, that's absolutely fine. Is this something we could review? Because then you can see if they're kind of BSing you, or if this is something they're actually considering and it's not a good time. And even if at the end of all of that is no, then I would say that if money is your motive and you feel like you are good at what you do, go somewhere, like just look for jobs, honestly. And don't be afraid to say no. There's been times when people have asked me to do things and I'll just say no, especially when it's like a good cause. With doing personal finance, people say, oh, can you speak here? And like people be like, oh, can you come to Oxford to speak about personal finance? There's no budget. I'm like, yes, let me get a train right now. No, I'm not getting that. That's not how life works. What am I getting there with like influencer money? No, or Instagram likes. That's what I meant to say. No. So it's really important that you have a certain level of integrity with it, and you're not afraid to stand your ground. And sometimes you might think, oh man, I could have done with that. And you say, is that reflective of my worth? No, it's not. And then, no is a positive word as well. That's why I don't have it.
We have no budget, I hear it all the time. So a lot of people are calling me and they're like, yeah, can you come and do a 2-hour workshop for free? We have no budget. Well, I have no time. It's really hard. I say yes. But it's really, really hard. And I feel really bad because I feel, that will have an impact on the relationship and stuff. So it's a very difficult thing to do.
That reminds me, my mentor actually said to me, do 3 to 5 charitable acts a year, and you decide on what that's going to be. And once you hit your quota, you have to leave it. Because there's always going to be great opportunities for you to kind of discount your value. And you have to be strong enough to say no.
So ask us in January, because then no more speaking engagements. And Lauren, I think for you is more on the business side. So again, for me, like building a Vestpod, a lot of free stuff, events, newsletter, the workshops and stuff. So it's getting better, but early stage when you build a business, to be honest, you're not making money unless you have this amazing product or service and you manage to sell it from day one. So what about your clients? What are, just a sort of framework to help them to understand where you should start charging for your services, when are you ready, or you should really go for it, try to see if you have a product that people will buy as a way to also test the market.
Yeah, so can I just very quickly add something to what I was saying? One thing that I read the other day, I read a great book, it's actually an Aussie book, it's called the Barefoot Investor, so Aussie, right? And there's a few tips in there about negotiating pay at work, and one of the things that he highlighted, which is really important for you guys to think about, is making the most of your review. Most of you will have a review each year or every 6 months, and for most people, and I know this used to be me, I would just think about it on the way into work that morning. But my suggestion to you guys would be, if you're in that situation where you're employed, is spend some time, actual time, preparing for that. So go into it having spent a few hours thinking about what your priorities are, where you add value to the business, what you're being undervalued for, and what your priorities are going to be over the next 12 months, so that if your employer hasn't given you KPIs, you're at least creating some for yourself, so that you can then justify, when it comes to your next negotiation, some really practical things that you agreed on in the previous meeting, and spend that time actually thinking about it. And I say that, I've got 2 employees in the room, so I'm probably going to get an email from them tomorrow morning saying they want to schedule a meeting with me. So with my clients who run businesses, for anyone in the room, and by the way, for anyone who's an employee, are any of you thinking about starting a business? Because I know that's a lot of people as well. Yeah, so a lot of the clients that I work with run service-based businesses, so I'm going to talk more specifically to that. I think the hardest thing about running a service-based business is that from the outside, it looks like you have very low cost of goods sold, right? So your clients think, well, it's just you and your laptop and your like freedom lifestyle in a cafe. So like, what could your fees possibly be going to other than your amazing holidays and like lush lifestyle? But the truth is that there is a cost of you providing a service, and that is the amount that you've invested in your career, the amount of money. Like, I know I've spent probably tens of thousands over the course of my business just getting better at what I do. I want to be an expert. I want to be the best business coach, best service provider. That's why I spend money going to events like Tony Robbins, and that's what makes my service valuable. And so when you have that in mind, when you charge the price that you charge for your service, it's justified by that. The other thing that I do with clients is that I ask them to kind of reverse engineer the lifestyle that they want. So you need to have a why and a purpose behind your business. And of course it's making money and adding value to the lives of your customers, but it's also so that you can do cool stuff. Like you can, for me, it's go and travel to Australia to see my family, or buy a house, or have a nice car, whatever those things are, give back. And so when you get clear on your desires, what you truly desire for your life, that's when you can start to reverse engineer what a successful business for you might look like. So when you've decided on what you truly desire, and for a lot of women that's quite difficult to actually admit, like, these are the things that I desire. Like, I'd actually really like to have a Louis Vuitton bag, or whatever it is for you. It'll be different for everybody. Once you've gotten honest with yourself about what you really desire and the amount of money you really want to make, then there's some pretty simple reverse engineering that comes with figuring out how many clients you need to have, how much you need to be charging, and how often you need to be taking on additional clients. And that can be a pretty straightforward exercise that you can do in an Excel spreadsheet, and yet a lot of clients that I work with have never thought about forecasting or setting goals or sales targets for themselves. And so if you don't know, one of my favorite quotes around money is, the reason that most people don't get what they want is that they don't know what they want. So in all honesty, it starts with getting clear on some goals, some real targets, where you want to be in 6 months, 12 months time in your business, and then doing some simple mathematics of dividing that by number of clients, the fee that you charge. And then the other aspect of deciding on a fee, in my mind, is that for most jobs, the spectrum, especially for services, is so varied. So you could get a business coaching, session for probably 50 quid somewhere in London. If you want to work with Tony Robbins, it costs $1 million. So, like, how do you decide on what you charge? Well, you charge based on what the market will pay. And my reservation about talking about money as your sense of worth is that there's an intrinsic emotional link in that, and what I don't want you guys to think is if you don't get a yes when you go out to sell, that somehow relates to what you're worth as a person, because the money that you earn doesn't define who you are as a person. You're defined by so much more than that. And so when you're deciding on a service, it's a price for your service. It's got to be about a price that challenges you, that pushes you, that gets you a bit out of your comfort zone, but that ultimately that someone in the marketplace is going to say yes to, and that's just economics. And when you look around and you see that, you know, the range of pricing that's out there, it's really about settling on a price that you feel justifies your expertise, the amount you've invested in yourself, and also that people are ultimately going to pay, and that will grow as you increase in expertise and as you grow and scale your business.
Yeah. Great, and I think for me, there's something around making money and values. So with Vestpod, I've decided not to work with financial institutions. It's very strong in my values, but actually it's really bad for business because I could make a lot of money taking money from financial institutions. So I think it's always trying to balance these two things, like your values with the money you want to make. But obviously, if when doing business or working for a corporate or actually having your own business or being a freelancer, if you don't make money, you have no business. And I think Carmel, you mentioned that with borrowing money you need to make a certain amount of money every month. So how to go and find this deal and negotiate this deal and learn how to say no if it's too low and go for like the next thing. Because I mean, money somehow is power, and I did the talk in a few of your companies actually, and talking to employees about the need to make money for your business, because that will mean you can work on things that really matter, you can hire really good people, so it's important also to make money for your business.
I think there's three key things for me when it comes to negotiation. And the first thing I want to say is, like, if you're scared of negotiation, it's an everyday thing. I was watching a friend of mine talking to they've got a friend of ours, a very spirited little boy, and she was having this negotiation about the sweets that he wanted to eat before the food and how she was negotiating that. And then if you're in a relationship or you're planning a friend's holiday, they're all negotiations. It's an everyday thing. You've got it in you. You know, if there's something that you want or something that you want to get to, you negotiate to get there. So if you kind of dial down this kind of scary negotiation stuff, and it's a process. It's not just about when you get in that room. It's about understanding your business and then the business or the person that you're dealing with. So if it's negotiation of a salary, it's thinking about what your manager is having to think about in order to give you that money. If they give you that money, what will they get from it? Like you're saying about putting your skills forward, they'll get loyalty, they'll get you staying there, they won't have the pain of looking for another employee. And then if it's like a business, it's working out, it's the process. And I always spend a hell of a lot of time before I go into a pitch, before I go into a meeting, trying to find those synergies between our business and their business and making sure they understand really clearly what borrowing money can bring to the table for that business, because we are a new business and we're a bit odd in the industry. We're kind of seen as, there's a bit of gender bias that goes on. My founder is a woman and we do things very, very differently, and I think a lot of them we've got a research arm and they look at Deloitte and Accenture and they know what they're going to get, and they've always done that, and we're a bit rebellious, but I so I have to go in there with that objection in my head and make sure that they understand that working with us, what that value will bring to them, but also the value that it will bring to us, like working with that business, etc., etc. And it's, again, I will go back to kind of some of the stuff that you guys have been talking about. It's not necessarily about money. It's about how, when these two businesses come together, for me, when I'm sort of working in the advertising and marketing world, when you bring that publication with that brand, how exciting that could be and how worthwhile that could be, and sort of you have to paint that picture and you have to go in there. Do never ever go into negotiation not knowing who you're talking to and why you're talking to them and what you want. And I do believe in the ethos of negotiation is a win-win situation, and if you ever start to feel a little bit grubby or a bit like you're coming below your value line, just say no, just walk away. The next one will come around the corner if you push for it. And also make sure that the person you're negotiating with feels like they're winning, like they're getting something good out of the deal, that they're kind of going to get a really good, rich service from you, a rich business, and that there's a synergy between you. I always, when I train people, I train them and I say to them, when you go to that business and you're pitching them, always, and there's a little bit of a facade that goes up, always make yourself look like you could work for that business. So when I go into a fintech, it's trainers, it's casual. When I go into an asset manager, it's a bit more formal, no primary colours, maybe a nude teal. Sorry, asset managers, but that's it. You kind of go in there and you're kind of, and it's, when they say like dating, if you like someone, you start to mirror each other, so start to mirror the business, like make them see, and then when you come out of it, it's like, great, our businesses are coming together. When you're doing the negotiation, it's kind of like a little dance like that, but always come out of it with a win-win. And if you're thinking, I don't actually want to work with this business, this doesn't feel right, or I'm not getting out of this what I want, or my business is not going to get out of it what's good for us in the long term, feel comfortable to walk away, you're just going to have to work a bit harder to find the next one.
Yeah, no, great. So that was about negotiation. Now I want to talk about something more personal. It's about building your personal brand. Because I think, now we're going to work for a very long time, we're all going to work for corporates, and we're going to go freelance, build our own business. And something I realized building Vestpod that I had absolutely no clue working for a corporate is that my personal brand is very important. So I was interviewed actually by Korea magazine last week, and Sarah, she's here actually, she asked me, okay, how did you do to build your personal brand? I was like, what? I don't know. So I had to think about that. But I think it's extremely important these days that we think about ourselves within the company, but also the external world. And now we have social media, we have a lot of ways to show ourselves to the world, and that, I think that's really, really helpful, even like using LinkedIn. But that also brings me to like imposter syndrome. So I'm here on stage, I have my book, we have Vestpod, it's like all of you, it's amazing. But there's always going to be time where you're like, I don't know how to do it. I'm not the best person to do it. So to be honest, there's amazing financial advisors everywhere in town, and people come to my events, and I'm like, but why? I'm not qualified for that. So how do you ask for more when you're not like 100% sure you're the best or like you're perfect for this thing? So like overcome this like imposter syndrome. How do you guys do it? Because you're here for a reason.
Yeah, I think you asked us to kind of think about something that we'd done that we'd achieved, and I won Salesperson of the Year at News UK, and there's 250 salespeople. Not picking myself up, but she hasn't got imposter syndrome at all. So there's like 250 salespeople, and they have like a big sales conference every year, and they kind of they have like different awards and stuff. And you don't necessarily nominate yourself, but they give you the nod. Like your manager will be like, you should enter this, So I was like, oh, okay. And then actually during that time, I was like, should I really enter 250 people? Loads of really cool salespeople, really, really smart and stuff. And then when I started to go through that process, you kind of have to fill out a nomination form. And I was like, I've actually increased the sales on the financial section by 62%. That's amazing. Well done, me. And then just going through that process. And I think sometimes it's really important to just kind of log your achievements. And it's something that I do loads. I kind of, like you were kind of saying, like really think about the things and log your achievements and that kind of like.
Do you write them down, like you have a notebook or
a
mood board or something?
Yeah, I kind of write them down, or I just kind of like a done list. At the end, especially like a quarter, like it's quite easy for me because I work in sales and numbers kind of speak for themselves. So like at the end of every quarter, I make sure that the team knows all the achievements that we've done. I look at the numbers, I talk about the numbers, I talk about the wins, the good clients that we've had. I kind of do it a little bit for myself, I do it a little bit for the team. But then, imposter syndrome is strong. I have slight anxiety as well, and those voices in your head are really strong. And when I was doing that application for Salesperson of the Year, I went out and I got testimonials from my clients, and hearing those testimonials, and whether you need to do it or not, you should always be doing it all the time, getting testimonials and portfolios. And but if you're going into a review for a salary, for instance, like talk to your colleagues and say, do you like working with me? Why do you like working with me? Like, I got some amazing testimonials from my clients, and I'd not really asked them before, and they were kind of like writing really lovely stuff, and they were saying really lovely things about me. And and I think that's what helped me win it. Actually, I won that year, and I think that was what it was. It was my client saying, and sometimes I still have that form, and sometimes I just go back and I read it, and there was I don't know if you saw today. Do you know Gwendolyn Christie? Is it Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones, the really tall lady? HBO didn't nominate her for an Emmy, so she nominated herself, and she filled out the application. What she nominated herself, and she's in the final numbers. And someone tweeted it was be your own cheerleader. So it just do be your own cheerleader. You maybe fill out a nomination for a mystery award for yourself, and then also find your cheerleaders around you when you're just feeling at a bit of a low ebb.
And I remember I had a coach a few years ago, and that's one of the exercises I did is actually, and maybe Ryan is, and I'm sure that's maybe something you do with your clients, but they asked me to go to see my parents, my brother, my friends, my colleagues, and ask them what they thought about me. So that's super awkward, I had to send this email, can you tell me what you think about me, these other questions and stuff, but it was so useful actually.
Yeah, I do get clients to do that, and we do that in our careers course as well. It's really nice because you guys will know it's easier to find things that you admire about other people than it is to find about yourself. So that's a great exercise to do, actually. Ask a few people that you trust and who you work with or who are a family to tell you what you're good at, what your strengths are, to help you reaffirm that. Most of us at some point in our lives, probably when you're a little kid, we're told don't show off, and that sticks with us because at some point in our lives we stop celebrating the things that we're good at. And I know as an entrepreneur you really have to practice celebrating the small wins, because in the beginning they are so small. I remember celebrating 100 people had visited my website, and I had to celebrate that, even though the perfectionist in me is but it's not 1 million, and it's never enough, and there's always more that you need to do. So I think celebrating those wins is really important. And another angle to this, I think, for me is that to help me figure out that I wanted to be a business coach, I had to be triggered by quite a few people online. And what I mean by that is when you're scrolling through social media, lots of us are on Instagram, we're seeing people doing things that make us feel a certain way, and sometimes it's a bit of a pang of jealousy, oh my god, I wish I could just take photos of myself in the Bahamas or the Maldives or whatever, I wish that was my life, or I wish I could have my own business or whatever it is, and a little pang goes off in your internal, and that voice says I wish that was my life. And I used to allow that to really drain the life out of me, and that's comparison. But I also realized somewhere along that journey that little trigger was, for me, a voice saying that's something that you want to do, that's something that you desire, that's something that you want to create. And I used to look at other business coaches and think I could never do that, or that I don't have the money or the time or the skills or whatever. And when you sort of transfer that energy into a desire to make a change in your life or to get good at something, and stop using I'm not good enough or thin enough or rich enough or whatever as an excuse for not taking action, then suddenly you can kind of put that energy into actually making it happen. So I think, there's that angle of kind of really, as Carmel said, celebrating wins and sharing that with people, and not being ashamed to say, hey, a great thing happened to me. Even if that starts with just having a WhatsApp group with a few friends and saying, hey guys, let's share good stuff that happens to us, to get into the habit of doing that. And then on a bigger level, as you build a business, it is quite powerful to have a personal brand. And sometimes that means sharing that, hey, I was on this panel tonight at this really great Vestpod event, which I did on Instagram earlier, and not being ashamed that that's a cool win, because I feel that inspires a lot of people, and the people who did that for me inspired me to take this career path. So I appreciate that, and I hope that someone else sees what I'm doing and hopefully is inspired by that in some way as well.
Yeah, and it's not bragging, I guess. But I think very early days it's really difficult when you try to put yourself out there. And again, I love Brené Brown, I don't know if you read her books, but she talks about being in the arena, and she's being criticized a lot, and she says, no, I'm only going to take criticism from people who are actually in the arena and doing things, which is so true. Because initially, like when you start sharing like your achievements and what you do, I remember with Vestpod, my only followers were my friends and my family, and they were like, you know, we have enough of like you sharing your story and stuff. But now that the community is bigger, it's great because you have like very honest feedback, so it's not always positive, but at least I think it's more constructive. I think the early days are difficult, and then it gets easier.
Can I just add to that as well? Like like with our business, we get criticised a lot from like more traditional financial services. Like today, we launched something this week, and then there was like this fintech founder, and he was criticising us for something. And I heard something somewhere, I can't remember who said it, but it was like when people are criticising you, it's because of something. It's more about them than it is about you. So like if they're coming at you, it's normally because they're like, oh, she's look at, you know. So say for instance, you put on that you're on the panel, and they're like, oh, no. And it's like it's because they're jealous that they're not on the panel and they're not out there doing it, right? Yeah, but it's you sitting at the back with that little pang. It's people sometimes are criticising you because they feel threatened by you and they feel threatened by it, and so that's why it's worth 100% just not listening to that and just keep going in your own kind of lane.
So imposter syndrome, just talking about that in general. I think I definitely had that for a long time, especially when it comes to personal finances, because I don't know if any of you lot have noticed, but I'm black and my name is Ola. My mum is an immigrant who obviously moved here from Nigeria here, and she is a single mother of 6 kids, and I'm the youngest in Britain, so a part of me would always use that as a way to put myself down and say, like, should I be talking about this? Some people come from a line of like inheritance and things like that, and now, you know, we're now getting to a place where when my mum was coming up, it was get your degree, do this, and, you know, work hard and things like that. And all the things that I used to think was a problem, like, will people really listen to me? Or they think I have money, things like that, all of that. Everything you think is a negative about you, you have to flip it on its head. For the sake of you, for the sake of the women who will come after you, it is ridiculously important, regardless of race, gender, anything. If you have been in a position where you feel like you haven't had the upper hand, it is so important that you have faith in yourself so that the person who comes after you has the upper hand. And sometimes I don't take what I'm doing as a big thing until, like, you know, and I do this for women in general, but trust me, when a black girl comes up to me and she's just like, you're a boss, bitch. I'm like, what? Me? And that means the world. And it's a reason for so many of us to keep going. Do you know what I mean? Even from like now, mothers are like working and returning to work because that's what they want to do. It's so great to say that, because back in the day you were kind of shamed if you don't want to stay at home with your baby all day. And, you know, it's just like, look, mummy had a life before you, mummy will have a life after you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got your own things. So I think how I deal with imposter syndrome is I always flip it on its head and say, you know, we are moving towards a new day, and I hope I am part of that legacy as opposed to part of the problem. So a lot of it is about mindset.
Thank you so much. So we're running out of time. I had like hundreds of questions, but I just want to wrap up with 2 books. Carmen, maybe you can hold this one.
2 books, no, you 3.
Yeah, 3.
Come on.
I think by the way, if you read it, actually, can you go on Amazon? We have 26 reviews, I think at 50, really? At 50 it bumps a little bit.
Yes,
So
yeah.
please, like, maybe 24 reviews by the end of the week, can we do that?
I'm going to do mine tonight. It's so important.
It's super important. Thank you. So I wanted to, so Carmel this week, I sent her the questions for the panel and she's like, have you read Lean Out? And I'm like, no, I haven't read it now. So this session wasn't about women, it was more about money in general, but we want our like 5 minutes feminism at the end. So I think you may all have read Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. Yeah, who has read Lean In? Yeah, a few years ago. So she's been like super criticized. I think at the time the book was published, I actually thought it was really good, to be honest, and it helped me a lot. I mean, I was working in banking, so for me, yeah, it was good. Like I had to follow the rule, I had to wear my suit, I had to, play by the rules and stuff, but now she's being criticized because they're saying, okay, it doesn't help. First of all, it doesn't help to try to be someone you are not actually, so try to be yourself. And also, what research has been showing, and Carmen can talk about this book, Lean Out, is that it doesn't help to actually have a few women who are doing really well. So we're not talking about breaking the glass ceiling, because to be honest, for most of us, it's actually climbing, it's actually going there, but we are at the very bottom, and actually having these girls like at the really top, and like the super senior women. Of course, we need role models, we need to see more women at the top, but it doesn't help, like all of us. So how can we more collectively work together and work in a different feminism? Because in Lean Out, and you can talk about it, but in Lean Out what they talk about is that now feminism is becoming very individualist, so it's you yourself, you think you're a feminist, so you're posting on social media and stuff, but the only interest is for yourself. So how can we actually all work together and help to raise the bar for all of us rather than trying to be the one at the top? So what was your takeaway from me now?
I mean, I've read it, and there's a little bit of shame when she talks about that this is what a feminist looks like t-shirt, and that's what I was going to wear tonight. It's super hard. It's super hard. It's super hard. And to me, I think, because I work in a corporate environment, and like I just said, sometimes I dress up and I play the asset manager, and sometimes I play the Thinset Person. Ultimately, you have to do what is right for you, because, like Bo was saying, you have to get your way to the top, and there's only you that can fundamentally get yourself there. But as you're going to the top, I think the problem is that please don't forget those that are behind you, beside you, underneath you, and just kind of bear that in mind and try and be conscious of that all of the way, because. And I think actually this kind of, I'm still processing this Lean Out book actually, because it just made me quite angry, but things like don't fall into the, the thing that made me think is because I know some women like Sheryl Sandberg, and I know that behind them is nannies and cleaners and all of these other women in low-paid jobs behind them, making sure that they can go out and be those women. They don't get there by themselves, and yay to them getting there, because it is important. But equally, let's just not just be. Just try and be a bit more aware. And I think and don't always try and clamber to the top. I think that's what it's kind of taught me. I'm quite happy in the middle with a load of kick-ass women, just being rich in knowing that we're doing something good, rather than just being at the top on my own, having to deal with not very nice men. Yeah.
So Lean Out.
Lean Out. I think I'm a Lean Out with like a little foot in, if that's all right. So still work in finance. Just a little, well, maybe my big toe. But, yeah.
I haven't read either book, if I'm honest. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that there's real value in women, embracing their feminine energy in the workplace and not having to be masculine all the time. Like, it's okay to... I actually had a journalist from Grazia call me this week, and it was such a strange interview. She was asking me about Ariana Grande was crying on tour or something, and she just owned it in the media. What did I think about that? and I was talking to my team about it, and I feel a bit removed from this conversation because, my team and I always talk about how we feel about things, and if there's some shit going on at home for them, I want to hear about it because I'm interested and I care about them. So feminine energy at work I think is great, but I'm for equality, not men or women. So I think there's value in also having a bit of that masculine energy in the workplace too, which is maybe a bit of aggression when it needs to be there, and if you need to make the sell, make the sell. So it's got to be a happy medium. I don't know, lean out at the appropriate times, and at other appropriate times lean in. I know that's probably not helpful, but I'm not on one end of the spectrum.
Thank you.
You know, I love what was said about it's so important that we support each other. You know, depending on who asks me to speak or do a workshop, I have different prices. So there's like,
Thank you.
There's a corporate price. Oh, honey, we're going straight to the top. But if I feel like it's, you know, for like Emily's, like I say for like one of my sisters, I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur and things like that, then I'm happy to do it at a different price. And I think we have to understand that on the way to our version of the top, we are still on our way. Obviously men have kind of been sitting there for a long time, and at times it can be obviously a lot easier for them. I think that we do need to support each other. And it can be nice when you're getting your praise and things like that, and you're, you know, smell the roses for yourself, but don't stay there so long that someone's just like, can I get a sniff? Where possible, be sure to always come back down and be like, oh man, do you smell that? Do you smell that? Like everyone in the audience, do you smell that? It is so important that we keep passing it back. There was a panel, I can't remember what event it was, you know, a lot of people are talking about money now. And I think a friend sent it to me and they were like, oh my gosh, like you're not on this panel. Because like last year I was just like, no one's putting me on any panels. Then, you know, you speak it into existence and out of nowhere I was just like, oh no, there's too many no. And I wasn't on the panel, but I saw that it was quite a diverse panel, because I'm all about obviously diversity and inclusion. And someone was just like, oh no, you're not on the panel and stuff. And I was just like, no, it's quite diverse. And they were like, yeah, but you know, you wanted to be the black woman in every panel. I was like, I don't need to be the black woman in every panel. It's not by force that I sit up here and at the next event. There's room for all of us. We have to create that room. Sometimes we have to get off our own pedestal in order to put someone else up. We are here to serve each other, and I think that is something that is super important. That, like I said, remember, obviously, smell your own flowers as well, big up your own chest. I nominate myself a lot, because I'm like, who else is going to do it? can't trust other people. So, like, I have a middle name, so I always type in my middle name instead of someone else's. So. Good trick there. But, yeah, after just be willing to, you know, give the flowers to somebody else and, you know, move on to the next part of your journey. So, I don't know, lean out, lean in, do both, but just make sure that you're getting as many people in there as possible. And when you can't, sometimes you'll be tired, you know, don't take that to heart. You've tried your best.
Thank you so much. Can we give a round of applause?